second round of negotiations have been concluded, and here is what the foreign minister of Iran has said so far. The main issue, it seems that the whole atmosphere of the negotiations was somehow positive. They haven't decided about the next round, the date and the place, the location of the next round of negotiations. But what was mentioned by the Iranian foreign minister, that is the massive distrust between the two parties before even starting the negotiations. And let me start, Larry, with you. What is your understanding on what has happened so far?
Well, they're not shooting at it. The United States has not launched its attack yet. We'll see. I think the most important development over the course of the week was the U.S. attempt to bully Iran back into saying, okay, you got to give up ballistic missiles, and you got to stop support for the other Shia groups in the region, Hamas, Hezbollah. And they said, if not, there will be no talks. And Iran said, okay, no talks. And then, according to Axios, the U.S. officials were surprised. I'm thinking, what a bunch of dummies. The fact that they were, quote, surprised by that, that would have been an easy prediction. So, look, I think there is a deal there to be made. The deal would be Iran would say, okay, let's set up an inspection process, procedure, so you, the West, can be assured that we don't have nuclear weapons. And the enrichment, right now, Iran's saying, it's all going to stay here local. They could be persuaded, I think, by Russia and China to let them take some of the, the stuff that's 60% and above and handle that. But this is not about nuclear weapons or uranium enrichment. This is all about regime change. The West does not give a damn in reality, that thinking it has to eliminate the non-existent nuclear threat. This is about getting rid of the Islamic Republic, exterminating it. That's what this is about. And so I think Arachi's correct. Okay, we had a good meeting, but I still don't trust the bastards. That's what he's saying. And I agree with him.
Oh.
Well, the last time, of course, they might not have been said to trust us, but at least they went along with what we wanted to do, and look what it got them. So I agree with Larry. I wouldn't trust us any further than I could spit, and maybe not even that far.
Yeah.
That said, I do think that Trump is not interested ultimately in launching this armada. And I could detail you a whole many reasons for that, prominent amongst which is there are still some sane people in the Pentagon. And that sanity made it up through Kane all the way to Hegseth. And I don't know that Hegseth presented it, but under the new rules, the new law, Goldwater-Nichols, the chairman can make his own statement. So as I understand it, that actually got across. So there's some trepidation about starting a war with Iran, as well there should be. I also understand that the IDF has had some outspoken people who also vouchsafed their real opinion about what it would be like for Israel were Iran to just let loose on them. And that's been an impediment, not so much Netanyahu himself, but he's got to pay attention to the leaders he's got left in the IDF. And then I also think that what Trump is after, ultimately, is the return to the JCPOA plus, if you will. And that he's going to tout as another war stopped, another achievement on his part, and get on to being chairman of the Gaza Peace Group, the new United Nations. I don't think he wants a war, in other words. I think he would rather have something else. But he wants it to look dynamic, forced, that the Armada was successful in coercing them into whatever he will pronounce. Remember, Donald Trump doesn't deal with reality. He describes reality for you and for his audience. And he'll describe this as a complete and utter success and achieved by him. and certainly by his use of the Armada to put pressure on Iran. So there's a lot more to it than that, but I think that's where we are now. I hope that's where we are, really.
Yeah, the disconnect with this, I call it the so-called Armada. So as you recall, during Operation Rough Rider, and I think that was named after Lindsey Graham's fantasy cowboy, but the one in March in the Red Sea, at one point we had 2 aircraft carriers there, we had 4 destroyers and 1 cruiser. Now this current mighty Armada is 1 aircraft carrier, 3 destroyers. That's it. So we're actually, and the ultimate irony is they keep pushing. My understanding is they're keeping that the naval force about 1,000 miles offshore, except the destroyers, half of the VLS cells, those vertical launch system cells, are loaded with Tomahawk missiles. But the Tomahawk missile can only travel 1,000 miles. So basically, we're well armed and equipped to blow the hell out of the southern beaches of Iran. I mean, it's, yeah, I'm saying, what are they thinking? And then, they've been, we've got this Russian and Chinese naval flotilla warships that are en route to the area. Oh, this is pre-planned. This is not new, but they're scheduled to conduct their joint annual military exercise, naval exercise, somewhere, I've heard anywhere from mid-February to the 1st of March. Normally it's the 1st of March, but for whatever reason, they're accelerating. So once you get Chinese and Russian warships in the region, and there's already a Chinese spy ship tailing the Abraham Lincoln. So again, I'm with Larry, hoping that we're not foolish enough to try to pull the trigger, because we're going to get a bloody nose. I would predict that we'd lose at least 1 ship or more, and that every U.S. military installation in the region would be decimated.
And Nima, I'll just add to that. Most of your listeners probably are too young. Remember the 1,000 nautical mile line. OPLAN 5001 in the Pacific, in particular, paid attention to that line. And at that time, we could sortie 8, 9 carriers against that line. But no skipper, no fleet commander, if you will, would cross that 1,000-mile line without the president's personal execute order, because they all knew that the combination of air, sea skimming surface, and subsurface was going to sink 1 or 2 aircraft carriers the moment they crossed that line. Now, technology has changed majorly since then, but it's changed on both sides. Both sides. And I will tell you that as a graduate of the Naval War College and having written my thesis on subs in direct support of the carrier battle group, which is what we called them at the time, I know a little bit about this. This technology on the kill the carrier side has progressed a lot further than the carrier's defenses. Subsurface, surface, and air have advanced. So one of the things someone probably whispered in Trump's ear was we might lose a carrier. Damn thing to start. Damn thing. An example to start. Donald, the first American president to lose 5,000 souls in one sweep.
Larry, what do we know about this staff, these people who are working, for example, on the aircraft carrier? It's 5,000 people, if I'm not mistaken. They're involved for the, for all the.
Oh yeah, it's a small city, but what I found fascinating is, so a week ago, just about a week ago, the Iranians flew out their version of the MQ-9 Predator drone. That's the Shahed 149, and it's capable of both intelligence, reconnaissance collection, as well as firing something along the lines of a Hellfire missile. And it overflew the Abraham Lincoln, and Abraham Lincoln didn't do anything to challenge it, which was fascinating. And we know that because the video footage was then shown on Iranian TV on the 30th, January 30th. So 2 days ago, then the Abraham F-18 fighter off of the carrier shot down. I think it's a Shaheed 136, or anyway, it's the one that looks like the triangle. It's not like the MQ-9, so it's a smaller drone. It's one that would be more capable of carrying out a suicide attack. Now, that's the story. They're saying they shot it down. We've seen no reaction from Iran, and frankly, I'd be surprised that they would fly that kind of drone out there unless they were just wanting to test to see what the U.S. would do. So this entire, I call it the fantasy battle plan of the neocon and Zionists. They didn't pay attention to what the U.S. failed to do against the Houthis last March, where they actually had a clear objective. One, establish freedom of navigation in the Red Sea. That was a stated clear objective, and the U.S. Navy, with all of its mighty power, with 2 aircraft carriers, failed to carry that out. We've never in modern history, we've never seen an instance where the United States could create regime change simply by dropping bombs from an airplane or a bunch of airplanes. I mean, we had, again, go back to Iraq in 2003. We had complete air superiority, air supremacy. And boy, we bombed the hell out of the Iraqis. And we still had to send in Delta Force to go rouse Saddam out of a hole in the ground. That was the only way we got regime change, by putting troops on the ground. And we're not going to do that to Iran. So we're relying upon air power and frankly, a naval capability that, in my judgment, just as that transition from the 19th into the 20th century, where the 19th century, man, horse cavalry was essential. It was a powerful military resource. But with the advent of the tank and the advent of the machine gun, horse cavalry was no longer, it was outdated. And these aircraft carriers, as long as they didn't face hypersonic missiles or missiles that could be guided missiles that could be launched, they were a pretty powerful force. But no longer, as we're seeing right now. They've got to stay. The weaponry we've got that we can equip them with, the Tomahawk cruise missile, is got to be, it's on the ships, but can't really be used because they have to stay far enough offshore so they don't get sunk. I mean, this is a twisted, sick drama. It's like the theater of the absurd.
Nima, let me point out that they call them strike groups now. They did call them carrier battle groups. If you were in the Red Sea, you can't deploy your defenses, not the way you would in the open ocean. Your subsurface, your surface, and your air defenses are constrained. Plus, the carrier can barely even turn around in the Red Sea. So that was a real problem for the Navy, and the Navy walked right into it. I would have expected to see somebody relieved for that. I didn't, because we haven't relieved anybody for losing big wars even in the last 20 years.
They get promoted.
Yeah. So it's a little bit different in the Indian Ocean or the North Arabian Sea, even because you got room to maneuver, you got subs underneath, you got aircraft above, you got missilery and so forth. But basically, Larry's right. You're going to lose one of these carriers. There's no question about it. And I'd be surprised to see the carrier get inside 1,000 nautical miles, or maybe a little bit more than that. But it would be extremely dangerous if Iran does have the missiles that I'm told that they have, and the capabilities that those missiles have. And we're not even mentioning Russia and China. And then the other thing about it is we just don't have the kind of firepower we need for any of this. And let me take you back to the Iraq War in 2003. Rumsfeld wanted to do it with 54,000 soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines. 54,000. He wanted to defeat Powell's idea of maximum force. He wanted to show that with modern technology and Donald Rumsfeld's brain, we could do a lot better. Well, the battle took place between Tommy Franks and Donald Rumsfeld, with Powell weighing in occasionally till he was told to get out of it by Cheney because he wasn't the chairman anymore. He didn't get out of it. They argued to the point where they got about 165,000 with about 20,000 offshore until the others had won the war for Donald. And they were all going to get out of there in 6 to 8 months, a year at the longest. Well, look what happened.
Yeah.
And Ken Shinseki was low on his estimate, I think, when he said 200 to 250,000 or so and got fired for it. You really were looking at the need for 500 to 600,000 soldiers and Marines on the ground in Iraq to do the things we did not do, to round up the 35 different huge arms depots and dispose of those arms in a safe way, to get after Saddam immediately, to get after al-Qaeda elements immediately, to neutralize the Republican Guard immediately or near immediately. All of that, you needed all this. Nima, we couldn't even put that many soldiers together to put on the ground today. So what is the threat, really, other than, as Larry said, this group of ships and others around acting like they're going to do something? What they're going to do, if they do anything militarily, is bomb the bejesus out of Iran, which won't do anything except make them angry.
Yeah, in fact, the real irony here, and actually, I did an interview. I interviewed Professor Morandi, and Professor Nima yesterday, or I should say Al-Khurshid, but we'll go with first name. And they both pointed out that there is a growing sentiment in Iran among the people to have a nuke. That actually the Ayatollah Khamenei, he's in a minority right now. And I think one of the ironic consequences of a U.S. attack, if it comes, will be it will finally convince even the Ayatollah that Iran must have a nuclear weapon, because it's only those countries with nuclear weapons that are left alone.
You may have heard. I think it was on the Judge's show yesterday. We talked about this CIA guy who has said that Saudi Arabia has a nuclear weapon or two.
Well, they do it. That's Dewey Claridge. I knew Dewey.
And my response to that was quite simple. Mohammed bin Salman went to Islamabad a couple of years ago with a $20 billion check. That was the installment, in my view. When we were doing the AQCon network, we were quite confident that were certain countries in the Islamic world to ask Islamabad for a nuclear weapon, they would get it. And they would get it fairly swiftly. So that's another element one factor into this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Larry, when you look at the team, the American team, we had Steve Witkoff together with Jared Kushner for the first time, and then the commander of CENTCOM, Mbin. What does that mean to you, in your opinion?
Well, you still, Witkoff is the president's personal representative. The fact that they brought the head of CENTCOM in now is a sign that, they're going to have him there to talk about what the U.S. sees as the military threat from Iran. It is, frankly, having he's the wrong. I would say the head of CENTCOM's the wrong guy to have there. What you want is, if you're serious about saying we want to make sure that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, that they're not processing fissile material to create a nuclear warhead, you want somebody from the Department of Energy that's skilled with, or that section. I'm not even sure it exists anymore, weapons inspectors to insist on what we would need to, the kinds of assurances we'd need in order to know that Iran was, quote, not building a nuclear weapon. So this, Witkoff, along with Jared Kushner, I think Kushner was there as well. It's just, it's a meeting of the Chabad house. This is if you ask them where their loyalties lie, is it the United States or Israel? I think they both have a tough time answering, because the kowtowing to Israel is still a very important part of what's driving Trump. You go back and look at, people have overlooked let's call it the Jewish mafia influence over Donald Trump. He was friends, early on with Roy Cohn, and Cohn was one of the leaders. He worked for Senator Joseph McCarthy, as I recall. Also worked alongside Robert F. Kennedy. But Roy Cohn was he was in, let's call it, the early form of the deep state, and Trump's association with Epstein has continued. So this what I'm saying is, this relationship with the whole Zionist enterprise, it's not incidental, it's not peripheral, it's central to this. And that I think is another thing that is driving Trump.
I just add, I think Larry's right. And one thing that really worries me here and makes me not quite as sanguine as I would be otherwise, full attack on Iran, its pressure, is the Epstein affair, because it's just getting new momentum every day, whether it's Melania, whether it's the president himself, or some of the president's cronies. And what better way to take attention off of it instantly than to start a massive war?
Yeah, and in regards to that, just one of the revelations that came out yesterday that I didn't know, but it turns out there's a photograph out of the files of Melania hanging out with Ghislaine Maxwell before she married Donald Trump, and it was reported that it was Epstein that introduced Melania to Donald Trump. Now, some have speculated, was she part of the Epstein sex activities? I doubt it, because she was too old. She was, if she was 15 or 16, she would have been a prime candidate. But she was 21, 22. That was, too old for Jeffrey and this gang of perverts that are being exposed around the world. But still, this relationship that Trump had with Epstein was deep. It wasn't peripheral. It wasn't incidental. They weren't just like members of a country club and they saw each other in the locker rooms, when they're playing golf on the weekend. No. And Trump has gone to great lengths to try to cover that up. And that's getting exposed, because really what they're exposing is how the Zionists, using Mossad, were involved with this massive campaign to blackmail and really control others. And the fact that it is now confirmed that Epstein, he was working for the Rothschilds. And people start, trotting out all these conspiracies surrounding the Rothschilds, but there is no doubt they have been one of the most destructive families in history in terms of promoting war, chaos, and involvement as well with degenerate sexual activities. I mean, this is some sick stuff that's coming out, and Trump is doing his best to play the actor Leslie Nielsen, and was a police story. Nothing to see here. Move along.
Yeah, it's astonishing how many rich people, influential, powerful people Epstein knew and worked with and worked on. really astonishing. Starmer yesterday in Prime Minister's Question Time was hard pressed by members who just simply stood up and said, "You know who you sent to America as our ambassador?" I mean, he's in there. Is there anyone who isn't in there? Is the question I've been asking myself, who's moneyed and influential and powerful to a certain extent. Is there anyone who isn't in there?
Yeah.